And so I want to leave you with two questions.
So what happened this morning?
Well, this morning we heard from the witness from Iraq body count, John Sloboda, Professor John Sloboda, who was, and the Iraqi body count was the partner of WikiLeaks, along with the media partners, in the release of the Iraq war logs in October 2010. It was very important to hear the testimony of Professor Sloboda, as he testified that the release of the field reports from Iraq was the single most important release in the endeavor of Iraq body count, which, of course, people know is probably the most respected authority on civilian deaths in the conflict in Iraq. Iraq body count has attempted to create what we can call the equivalent of the Vietnam War Memorial in the US, to publish the names of the deceased and those killed, those civilian kills in that conflict. So his testimony was important. He was a part of the process at the time, alongside the mainstream media partners, and it was good to hear the importance of getting the documents into their work. And as is known, the Iraq war logs did reveal 15,000 additional previously not reported names of civilian deaths in that conflict. The Iraq body count IBC also took part in the reduction process that was being described this morning, which goes totally contrary to the narrative that there was some kind of irresponsible and not thoughtful release or data dumping at the time. On the contrary, a lot of work was put into the process of reducting anything sensitive out of the Iraq war logs, almost 400,000 reports. Iraq body count did contribute to that process, and where names were reducted, places, and anything that could point to any sensitive information. So that is was good to hear, and in Professor Sloboda's testimony, he basically said that this had been a very responsible endeavor in his opinion. And he also pointed out, actually, which not many know of, that towards the publication date in October 2010, a previous deadline to publish had to be postponed and delayed by a few weeks. That was because we at WikiLeaks did not deem that the reduction process was complete, so we had to delay, despite, as Sloboda pointed out, considerable opposition by the mainstream media partners who wanted to stick to the deadline. And I'm referring to The Guardian, Der Spiegel, New York Times, and those who were in the media alliance. So that goes to show that we took this release very seriously, the process that we were undergoing at that time. So we basically forced the mainstream media partners to agree to a delay until the material was ready for publication.
Okay, Mr. Rapson, so what about the discussion about reading some witness statements concerning al-Masri and some other people?
Yes, we heard, of course, yesterday from John Gertz, the journalist from Der Spiegel, or previously at Der Spiegel, about the al-Masri story, the German citizen who was basically kidnapped by the CIA, renditioned to a black site, tortured by the CIA, and then left on the side of the road in Albania. That led to basically a procedure in Germany where arrest warrant was issued against the CIA officers who were identified, and the reluctance was highlighted by the German government why they didn't push that matter in a more vigorous fashion, and the reason was revealed in the diplomatic cables that showed that the American government was blatantly threatening the German government if they would, for example, issue the arrest warrant in the United States. There would be serious repercussions. So what was revealed in the diplomatic cables in that instance was the tremendous pressure placed upon the German government not to push the matter further. It would have been very good to actually have the testimony from El-Masri himself in the courtroom. The prosecution obviously did not want anything heard about the CIA torture program in the courtroom. There was discussion about whether his testimony could be read into the records entirely. That was protested somewhat by the USA representatives here in this courtroom. Obviously, they did not want to hear a single word about the CIA torture program uttered in this courtroom. They even wanted to edit the witness testimony by El-Masri, so to leave out, obviously, what they considered as sensitive issues to be heard by the general public, mainly that the CIA had an extensive torture program of which El-Masri was a victim of. In my opinion, I would like actually to hear the testimony in full. I would love to have him as a witness here. If you just consider the fact that no one has been held accountable, but this would give El-Masri an opportunity to face basically a representative of the government, the US government, who was responsible for the horrendous treatment that he had to suffer.
Thank you.
This is Radio Free Assange.
I'm quite proud of that. We have built a really grand project, in some ways a grand dream, to create a rebel library of Alexandria.
Hands up, Assange!
This is Radio Free Assange.
And we demand free Julian Assange! 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 No extradition! Anyone that's censored! No extradition!
This is Radio Free Assange.
Free Julian Assange! No extradition!
This is Radio Free Assange. Journalism is not a crime. Free Julian Assange.
No extradition!
You are listening to
What has happened this week so far?
Well, this week we've seen the defence continue to lead evidence of a number of very powerful defence witnesses. A great deal of that evidence has gone to the process of redaction by which Julian Assange worked extremely hard to make certain that names were not released which could lead to any harm. More of that evidence went to some quite stunning exposition of the kind of war crimes that WikiLeaks exposed. We've seen evidence leading to the fact that WikiLeaks actually caused a change in policy, caused a reassessment of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and fundamentally changed, attitudes, for example, to drone killing in Pakistan. So, on a wide view, we've seen evidence both as to the value of WikiLeaks material and to how much work WikiLeaks put in to making sure that nobody was harmed by any of the publication. We've also seen the prosecution change tack, and the US government has now, they appear to have stopped arguing that WikiLeaks is not comparable to other journalism organizations, and on Tuesday we saw them argue directly that any journalist, any publication that publishes any classified material is liable to prosecution under the Espionage Act. They even went as far as to say that the Pentagon Papers case proved in the Supreme Court, if you read it carefully, that there could have been prosecutions of the New York Times under the Espionage Act. So I hope the world's media is paying attention to what the American government is saying in this case, which is contrary to the propaganda and the press releases they've been putting out about the case, and contrary to what they were attempting to say in the first week. And if you want a personal highlight for me, it was Dan Ellsberg, who was wonderful to see. Dan Ellsberg. So the other wonderful thing to see is that, almost every vehicle going past hoots its support, which is wonderful. But Dan Ellsberg, who is now an elderly man, but he showed that there's no age at which he won't be intellectually superior to the prosecuting counsel. And he absolutely hammered the suggestion that Julian Assange was on a different moral plane to him. He said that he had a great affinity with Julian Assange, would take exactly the same decisions, and Julian Assange, if anything, redacted more than he did. And that Julian Assange had done a great service in showing the country and the public that they were being lied to in order to promote illegal and aggressive wars. And just seeing Dan Ellsberg and hearing him speak with all his moral authority was a great thing for the court, I think. The court at the moment is discussing the exclusion of evidence. The American government doesn't like us hearing all this, and as I speak, they're discussing not allowing Khaled al-Masri to speak because he's going to make accusations that he was tortured by the American government. Allegations which have already been found to be true by the European Court of Human Rights. But the American government don't want any more truth to be heard in this case, and we'll see how it goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
This is Radio Free Assange.
I'm quite proud of that. We have built a really grand project, in some ways a grand dream, to create a rebel library of Alexandria.
Hands up, Assange!
This is Radio Free Assange.
And we demand free Julian Assange! 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 No extradition! Anyone that's censored! No extradition!
This is Radio Free Assange.
Free Julian Assange! No extradition!
This is Radio Free Assange. Journalism is not a crime. Free Julian Assange.
No extradition!
You are listening to
The best news of all is that courage is contagious. We have this myth sometimes, this myth that the future is something that is fixed, static, out there, waiting to happen to us. But the future doesn't happen to us. It's not fixed. It's not out there. The future is created by us, by the aggregation of the millions of choices each of us makes every day. And so I want to leave you with two questions. Number one, what is the future that we want to create? And number two, do we have the courage to create it?
You are listening to Radio Free Assange. Journalism is no crime. Jail the war criminals. Free Julian Assange.
In democracies, wars are a result of lies. And why one might think that that should lead us to a state of despair, it should lead us also to an optimistic understanding. Because if wars can be started by lies, peace can be started by truth.
No extradition! It's only one decision! No extradition! It's only one decision! No extradition! It's only one decision! decision! No extradition!
This is Radio Free Assange.
I'm Julian Assange.
Roger, I'll get you into space.
Editor of WikiLeaks. We've exposed the world's secrets.
These documents belong to the United States government.
Been attacked by the powerful.
The United States strongly condemns.
Hey, quit asking questions. He broke the law.
Illegally shoot the son of a...
Today, we're on a quest for revolutionary ideas that can change the world tomorrow.
Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange!
This is Radio Free Assange.
We are now approaching the state of Orwell's dictum. Perfect dictum, that he who controls the present controls the
Fidel,
past.
cuéntame un poquito el resumen semanal hasta el momento.
Bueno, hasta el día de hoy, alrededor de 6 testigos han sido examinados, tanto por la defensa como por la fiscalía. En general, lo que han dado cuenta es de que la persecución que tiene a cabo en contra de Julian Assange es puramente política, ¿no? Los testigos que han dado testimonio desde Estados Unidos han dado argumentos para decir que Obama, si bien es cierto, quiso proceder con la extradición de Julian Assange, la congeló, desistió de hacerla porque eso sería la criminalización del periodismo, lo que llaman el problema del New York Times. Si extraditamos y criminalizamos a Assange, deberíamos hacerlo con los demás medios de comunicación que han hecho la misma actividad, que han publicado la misma información. Entonces, eso me parece a mí que ha quedado claro de todos los testigos que tienen voz autorizada para argumentar al respecto, ¿no? Y lo segundo que hemos visto, ¿no?, de varios testigos es de el riguroso sistema de edición y de protección de fuentes que tuvo lugar con las publicaciones de WikiLeaks, tanto en lo que se refiere a las publicaciones sobre la guerra de Afganistán como las de Irak. El día de ayer, el periodista de Der Spiegel, que trabajó junto a WikiLeaks en la publicación de ese material, dio cuenta, además, de que WikiLeaks y Julian Assange eran los más preocupados porque esa edición sea rigurosa y sea integral, completa, a pesar de las presiones que tenían de los medios que estaban haciendo sociedad para la publicación, de cumplir con ciertas fechas. WikiLeaks fue quien se opuso a la publicación de esos documentos sin que estuvieran debida y rigurosamente editados para proteger las fuentes. Eso lo hemos visto de testigos que tienen los mejores argumentos porque fueron partícipes de esas publicaciones.
Me respondiste la segunda pregunta en la primera, pero tal vez te hago una segunda pregunta. ¿Cómo has visto el comportamiento de la Fiscalía en el caso?
Bueno, la Fiscalía evidentemente está manteniendo una actitud muy agresiva con los testigos, ¿no? La táctica es tratar de desacreditarlos, ¿no? Yendo incluso hasta su capacidad profesional, ¿no? Y yendo incluso a detalles de si acaso están siendo pagados o tienen alguna remuneración por el trabajo profesional que están llevando a cabo en este proceso. Ellos han trabajado en reportes profesionales, técnicos, para argumentar la defensa, ¿no? Entonces la Fiscalía está en eso. Lo interesante aquí es que me parece que han cambiado el discurso inicial de decir que Julian Assange no está siendo criminalizado por la actividad periodística, sino por haber supuestamente expuesto, ¿no?, a fuentes del gobierno norteamericano con sus publicaciones. Han cambiado ya un poco esa narrativa y ahora abiertamente están sosteniendo que cualquier periodista que se atreva a publicar la misma información que Wikileaks y muchos otros medios en el 2010 lo hicieron, estarán sujetos a una persecución judicial, ¿no?, como la que Julian Assange está siendo víctima. Es decir, ya esa narrativa de que no es periodista parece que ya no funciona, porque evidentemente todo indica que no solamente que es un periodista, sino que es un gran y responsable periodista. Ahora la criminalización es abiertamente al periodismo y eso debería, me parece a mí, preocupar a todo el periodismo a nivel mundial.
Muchas gracias, Fidel.
Ya.
Gracias, Fidel.
This is Radio Free Assange.
I'm quite proud of that. That's we have built a really grand project, in some ways a grand dream, to create a rebel library of Alexandria.
Hands up, Assange!
This is Radio Free Assange.
And we demand free Julian Assange! 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 No extradition! We want the censor! No extradition!
This is Radio Free Assange.
Free Julian Assange! No extradition!
This is Radio Free Assange. Journalism is not a crime. Free Julian Assange.
No extradition!
You are listening to Radio.
The best news of all is that courage is contagious. We have this myth sometimes, this myth that the future is something that is fixed, static, out there, waiting to happen to us. But the future doesn't happen to us. It's not fixed. It's not out there. The future is created by us, by the aggregation of the millions of choices each of us makes every day. And so I want to leave you with two questions. Number one, what is the future that we want to create? And number two, do we have the courage to create it?
You are listening to Radio Free Assange. Journalism is no crime. Jail the war criminals. Free Julian Assange.
In democracies, wars are a result of lies. And why one might think that that should lead us to a state of despair, it should lead us also to an optimistic understanding. Because if wars can be started by lies, peace can be started by truth.
No extradition! There's only one decision! No extradition! There's only one decision! No extradition! There's only one decision! No extradition!
This is Radio Free Assange.
I'm Julian Assange,
Roger, I'll get you in constraint.
editor of WikiLeaks. We've exposed the world's secrets.
These documents belong to the United States government.
Been attacked by the powerful.
The United States strongly condemns.
Hey, quit asking questions. He broke the law.
Illegally shoot the son of a...